I want to bring greetings from the trade unionists against the EU and also from the Rail, Maritime and Transport Workers Union, 80,000 transport workers, which is campaigning daily to get us out of the European Union. It often appears as if this campaign is actually about two wings of the Tory party. And I'm afraid to say, I mean, you may have noticed yourself that it is the case that, that the Leave and the Remain campaigns have been captured by these two wings of the same party, because then they're exposing the splits between them. And so it's very difficult to get a progressive position across to the public. And it's been very frustrating for all of us, because it's clear that this is a part of an ongoing battle for democracy that unites left and right. And it divides the people against the political elites, which are clearly pushing this narrow discourse, which doesn't really deal with the problem. And the referendum isn't about the European Union, it's more about the divisions within the Tory party. And what is coming across more and more, coming up to the referendum, is actually that the EU is anti-people, it's anti-democracy, and is actually designed to be that way. The Tory party, the CBI, Morgan Stanley, Goldman Sachs, the European Roundtable of Industrialists created this monster, and that's what we're battling against, and that's what we're trying to get across. My union, the RNT, opposes the European Union because it privatises our transport networks. The British Rail was privatised under EU Directive 91440 in 1994, and next month will be the fourth rail package will go through, where the so-called British model will be imposed on 500 million people without their knowledge. And what's really frustrating is that the organisations that are supposed to represent working people are denying that this is the case. This is really a placebo on globalisation, on corporate globalisation, where are we ruled by democratic parliaments or by corporate power, as Linda has pointed out. It is more than that, it's actually structural adjustment for 500 million people. Structural adjustment began 40, 50 years ago in Africa. The Common Agricultural Policy was developed to create a protectionist agricultural policy in Europe to export cheap food to Africa, and now Africa cannot afford to feed itself. And at the same time, structural adjustment was put upon it, where everything was handed over to the corporations. And that's why so many people are trying to escape that unfortunate continent. And that is the same policy they're trying to impose here in Europe. And the first manifestations of that following the crisis of 2008 is obviously in the bailout countries, Greece, Romania, Portugal and Spain, where they weren't bailouts for the people of those countries, they were bailouts of the banks that actually owned that debt. And the debt was actually handed to the people. So they nationalised the debt on behalf of corporate capital. Now, what's going on in Greece will go on in the rest of Europe, because that is the policy of corporate globalisation, profits for the banks and debt for everybody else. Now, why is it then that the Labour Party haven't had a policy of opposition to this? And that is one of the questions that I think the other speakers have spoken about this. Where is the left? Where has it gone? And in Denmark, exactly the same process has happened here. But the people are still here. Our trade union movement is still here. And regardless of what happens on June 23rd, the debate is now being had that hasn't been had for the last 40 years. Now, you can't put the toothpaste back in the tube, in a sense. This debate is now out in the open, regardless how they've tried to manage this situation. And what we've found in trade unions against the EU is ordinary members of other unions are coming to us and saying we need to change the position, regardless of what happens on June 23rd. So it's not the end of the story. I mean, it's the beginning of a new chapter, really, of resistance to the European Union. And the idea of social Europe is really collapsed as a concept. And I don't think in the debates we've been having, my colleague from the RMT debated a trade union leader last Friday, and social Europe didn't even appear on the agenda. He's too embarrassed to actually raise the issue of what it's about. And what's interesting is that actually, you know, in terms, we will no longer have maternity rights. Well, in Britain, we have 52 weeks maternity leave. And in Europe, we have the minimum is 14. And there was a development to move to 20 weeks, but that was taken out by the European Commission last year. And when you debate people who believe in this concept and they talk about that, they say, well, we've got to stay in because we want everyone else to have 52 weeks. So we get stuck by either side of the debate. And actually, it doesn't make any sense anymore because what the EU represents is permanent austerity, where parasitic capital rules us over and above any democratic rights. So the message is, whatever happens on June 23rd, is that we're going to take this movement forward, not only in Britain, but across the European Union. We can no longer have a situation where trade union leaders say we cannot confront the Tory party, but we can change the European Union. How can you change the European Union that is ruled by the Lisbon Treaty? And it's the treaties that are never discussed in this debate whatsoever. And the Vote Leave had a broadcast 2 days ago. It was the poverty of its arguments were so depressing because actually what is key here is understanding the treaties. No changes can be made to the treaties unless 28 member states agree to it. And as long as that is the case, then you cannot reform the European Union. And you can have Varoufakis, you can have who you like coming up and saying, you know, Owen Jones or whatever, saying it can be done. But what is most appalling, what is most galling, is that they are now saying, this is how desperate they are, is that anyone who's opposed to the European Union is somehow a racist. We've got a situation where 500 million white people can move around the EU, but if you're black from outside the EU, you can't. And what must be understood is that free movement of capital, goods and labour and services is deeply reactionary and it has to be defeated. And I think there is a majority of people who are very uncomfortable with the whole situation, may not understand it all, but they want their democracy back. And this is a question of democracy across the European Union. Thanks very much.